Welcome to Conversations with Doc Martin. This video series focuses on extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. Today is certainly no exceptions. We're joined by my friend Ken Meeker. Ken, in May of 2014, after a successful career in the property and casualty insurance industry, relocated to Arizona to be close to his family. In July of 2014, Ken suffered a severe and traumatic loss of vision and became legally blind. After 2.5 years of treatment, surgery, and recovery, his mother was then diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. He cared for her until she passed away in 2018. And today, Ken coaches and guides blind individuals and low vision adults to discover their skills, passions, and their value as a career specialist with the Foundation for Blind Children's Adult Transition Service, a vocational rehabilitation program focused on helping blind and low vision adults return to work. So Ken, welcome to you today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, for our viewers out there, Ken and I are friends. And so we've been friends when he was in the program and now is a part of the program. And so we'll get to that a little bit later. And so, Ken, if we could kind of take a step back and just kind of walk us through kind of your experience and what occurred to go from a vision functioning adult to a low vision legally blind adult, and kind of what occurred for you.
Sure. So, you know, after it happened, obviously it was very sudden and very traumatic, and to not know what was going on was it was terrifying, to be quite honest. When it happened, I was actually by myself. Mm-hmm. It was on the 4th of July of all days. Mm-hmm. And I had just moved. I just relocated out here to Arizona, and literally from one moment to the next, I couldn't see anything.
Wow.
And yeah, it sucked, to put it mildly. And took a lot of tests because we didn't know what was going on. Mm-hmm. And we found out that there was a severe infection in my eyes, and took 2.5 years of, you know, I had 2 major surgeries on my right eye, 2 minor on my left. And it was a challenge. Lots of therapy, lots of good support. You know, I'm a big believer in therapy, especially when everybody needs it. But you know, and I had a great support system that really helped. And you know, with trauma or loss, because that's what it was. It was loss. You know, yep. I had to mourn it. I had to go through the grieving process, and through that, with help. You know, I didn't do it all on my own. I can't claim all the credit. I landed in a good place, and then when my mom became sick with cancer, it was the 3rd time she had it. It wasn't even a question of whether I was going to take care of her, and so that's what I did. And that kind of forced me to sort of reassess and reevaluate what I was capable of doing, mm-hmm. because, you know, no was not an option anymore.
Sure.
You know, like, and so I didn't allow myself to have any limits, because everything that I did was for her benefit. And after she passed away, I just, you know, I took some time to grieve and just kind of reassess what I wanted to do, because I'm not that old. And I went through an O&M training for the white cane, because I have a little bit of usable vision, but not much. And especially at night, I can't really see anything. Right. And I lived by myself at that point, and I wouldn't leave the house if it was dark, which is very limiting, especially in the winter when when it gets dark at like 4:30 here in Arizona. So that was very limiting and very restrictive, and I didn't like the way that made me feel. So I took the initiative, and I went and I got O&M training. And it was actually the teacher, after I was sort of finished with her, she was like, why don't I go through a full vocational rehab program to go back to work? And she's the one that put the bug in my ear, and I was like, I don't know why don't I? Mm-hmm. And she, you know, she asked what I want to do, and I was like, I don't know, but if I did anything, I would want to do something that would make a difference, and where I could make an impact and do something that wasn't just about me. Yeah. And I didn't know what that was at the time. And so I signed up for the vocational rehab program through the Foundation for Blind Children, and went through it, completed it. And my original goal is, you know, I was going to actually go back to school, get a degree in project management, and this position opened up. And I'm a big believer in when opportunity presents itself, you have to take it. And this is literally my dream job. I absolutely, nothing is more rewarding than what I do for me, to empower people to realize that they're still capable and that they can still strive for success and be successful. Just how they do things is in a different way. It's incredibly meaningful and incredibly powerful work just to be a part of it. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll certainly talk about the foundation because, you know, we met while you were in the program, and then you subsequently got the job. And I have to tell you, you've always been a positive guy. I've always been so impressed and humbled to know you.
Thank you.
And yet, after you got this position, I noticed like even a higher step up, your passion, your excitement, if I may be so bold, even just your root, your core happiness, just you glow when we talk about it. And as I said, it's very humbling to see.
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel humbled to be there because I don't do the work. That's the way I look at it. I am there to facilitate and give people guidance, counsel. But really it's the people going through the program that they do all the work.
Yeah.
They're the ones that do it. And to be at any part of their journey towards them bettering their lives and accomplishing what they want, because it's really up to them, to each person going through the program, what they want to get out of it.
Yep.
And just to be a part of it, I feel very fortunate and blessed to be part of it, because it's a very special journey that these people go through, and it can be very difficult and very challenging. And every day is rewarding because I never know what each day is going to be like, and every person is different. Just in in the world, every person is different, especially in this program, everybody's at a different place in their journey through the vision loss, and no one case is the same. They are all at different levels, and so the approach to each person, it has to be different. And it's incredibly rewarding work just to see them progress, and when there's like an aha moment. I have them every day with students. It's just incredible just to see them realize that they're not any less of a person with vision loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about the program before. We talked about even my journey of coaching and so forth. And as you were talking, it's really very there's an analogy or a metaphor here relative to what you do versus coaching. Because when you think about coaching, the way I always describe it, it's helping somebody get from A to B, whatever B is for them. And they always had what they needed to have inside them. They just didn't know it yet. Yeah. And so, you help, and the program and the structure and the systems help to bring that out in people.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's fantastic. I want to go back to something you said. You said, when your mom was ill and she needed help, you said no wasn't an option. Right. And I would like, if you're comfortable, to kind of talk a little bit about kind of your mental journey, if you will, because here you were in a place where you've had trauma in your life. You've had a deck of cards dealt to you that you never anticipated as an adult. And then you have to kind of take care of your mom. And there's so many people that would be listening that I know are going through their own traumas and their own challenges. And so, how did you end up being able to pick yourself up as somebody who, recently had become blind and be able to know, I've got to be that person for my mom? How walk us through that journey?
Sure, absolutely. So everything most of the best parts of myself I owe to my mom, because I just try to emulate who she was as a person. She was incredibly kind, incredibly giving, and she didn't have it easy all the time. She had some really rough experiences in her life where she could have been bitter and jaded, and she never was. She was always kind. She was always generous with what she had, and incredibly loving and encouraging just as a mother to every, not just to me and my brothers, but to anybody whose path she would cross. And that generosity and that kindness just is something the older I get, the more grateful I am for it, because I understand that not everybody grows up in an environment where their growth is fostered, where their individuality is fostered and encouraged, and they're told, and they're not, I was never given limits as to who I could be as a person. It was, as long as I was living my truth and being, a decent human being, that's all that really mattered. And that was an incredibly special environment to grow up in. And so when my mom got sick, it wasn't even a question of, should I take care of her? Or am I going to? It was just, that's what I would, it didn't even cross my mind. It wasn't even a conscious decision. It's just this, she gave everything for me and my brothers. Like I said, it wasn't even a conscious decision. This was just what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Because I owe everything, all the best parts of me, I think, are from her. So it was a way of just not even showing appreciation, just love. I loved her unconditionally, and that she needed somebody there, and that I was going to be that person.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely
Thank
beautiful. You. Just the steadfast resolve, regardless of circumstances, to be able to look through or past, if you will, the obstacles to kind of come out on the other side. And so, when you're talking to some of your students, as an example, at the foundation, and I would imagine everyone, well, I don't imagine, I know everyone handles trauma differently.
Absolutely.
And so share us some of your experiences with individuals where, they weren't in that resolute place that you just described. What have you observed of your students and other individuals that you've come across as it relates to, this journey of resolve, going potentially from a pretty low resolve to a more steadfast place? What have you seen?
Well, that's one of the most amazing parts about what I get to do is usually when people come into the program, they're at a place where they haven't been able to do anything for a long time, and so oftentimes they've sat at home, unable to do a whole lot, because one of the reasons they want to get into the program is to get all the independent living skills. That's one of the things that's part of the program. The ability to get around, orientation and mobility, and we have an orientation and adjustment to disability. Like all of these components fit together into the program, and I handle like a component of it, which is the job readiness, the career aspect.
Sure.
But as a team, the whole department, we all work together to foster the growth of the individuals, and learn Braille. That's another aspect of it. Because if you're blind and you don't know Braille, you're illiterate. That's something most people don't realize. And so together, we all work together to just foster this growth and watch, and we get to see them grow. I had an experience yesterday that was really quite profound. It was somebody who is kind of new on their journey, hasn't been able to do much of anything for a few years now. And one of the things that I help guide people through is the fact that all of this stuff so if you're an adult, like say you're in your 40s and you suffer, total vision loss at 40, you have, 40 some odd years of experience of your life that is still there. You haven't lost that. And so you have skills, you have knowledge that is completely still there. How you do things is different. And that's part of the process, is understanding that you can apply the stuff, the knowledge you have and the skills you have in a different way. And so one of the things I love about my job is I'm empowered to work with each student and to be creative in terms of how I do my job. And so yesterday there was somebody who didn't think they knew how to problem solve. And it's like, well, how could you have gotten to this point without any help if you didn't know how to problem solve? So I just did an exercise. I was just, thinking on the fly. And so I grabbed a normal pen, a marker, a highlighter, and some other type of marker out of my desk. And I set them in front of the student. And I'm like, okay, well, I want you to walk me through and identify what these are. Just talk through the process. And as they were doing it, they were able to identify each thing. And I'm like, you just problem solved. And you could see, it was like an aha moment. They understood that they still could do the same things they used to do, just how they do them is different. They don't see it and observe. They have to use other senses to do it. And when they make those sort of big progressions, it's so empowering for them to realize that they're, I hate to use this term, but not useless anymore. Because oftentimes they come in feeling that way, like they can't do anything anymore.
Absolutely.
And when they're done, that's not how they feel. They feel very empowered, and they feel like they're ready to get back out there. And it's just such an amazing thing to watch.
That's
and be a part of
awesome. Yeah. It's almost as if, you know, we all do this, you know, differing abilities amongst us, but we label things so often, and we make judgments based on those labels. It's like, well, I can't problem solve. Well, what do you mean you can't problem solve? You know, you're a functioning individual that has suffered a trauma and a vision loss in this one case, and so we're kind of putting a label on it. And you know, oftentimes on my series, we've talked about the concept of imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
People feel like, you know, they shouldn't be here, or they don't belong, or they're not good enough. You know, my lectures, I talk about mindset and my gremlin that's lit up there in the middle towards the top, named Otis. But you know, we all have this inner talk track in our heads. And, you know, when you add on a traumatic event such as you know, loss of vision, that can be incredibly, you know, that just adds on, of course, to the level of our inner roommate, as Michael Singer, the author, talks about, that goes on in our head, and it can be definite if you think about it.
Oh, it absolutely is. Like, that is one of, I think that is 50% of the work that I, you know, involve with the students is getting them to not put themselves in a box, or not label themselves in some negative way. That's a big part of it, is because we're just, in general, I think people are so reliant on their vision. And there's this attitude, you know, I don't know, a lot of, when I was, you know, a kid, there's, would you rather be deaf or blind? Like, a lot of kids do that thing. It's like, well, I you know, and most people, they don't want to be blind, because, you know, how are you going to navigate the world? How are you going to do anything? You know, and it's difficult. It's not that, you know, being blind is easy. It's very difficult, and it's very challenging, because you have to relearn how to do a lot of different things.
Right.
But I also think that, you know, I don't consider my disability a disadvantage, because I have to do all the same stuff everybody else has to do. I just have to do it differently, with a different set of tools. And so I can figure things out in ways that sighted people can't. And I consider that, you know, that's an advantage that I have as somebody with, you know, severe vision loss. And that's one of the things that I try to go over with all of the students, is to not view their disability as a disadvantage. Doing things different doesn't mean that they're bad or worse. It's, you know what, you have had to learn additional skills. That is something that you should be proud of, and not look at yourself as somebody who's incapable, and put limits on yourself, because I don't put limits on any student. Sure, they shouldn't drive, you know, but that goes without saying. But you know, driverless cars are coming, so, you know, who knows? But you know, but that applies to anybody. There's always things that people can't do, you know. But whether it's, you know, I'm never going to be a basketball star, that has nothing to do with my vision. You know, and so it's sort of getting people to step outside of the limitations they put on themselves, and realize that all the potential they've ever had, they still have.
Absolutely.
And it can be difficult. It's not easy all the time, but there's some very heavy moments that occur, because one day you might, you know, let's say, if I've had these moments where you run into a pole and it hurts, and it just completely can throw off your day. Or something like that. And or the public transportation system isn't working right, or if you use a ride service, your ride doesn't show up. And it's things that you didn't used to have to deal with, and you didn't have to work around before your vision loss. And it can be very frustrating, because you're like, why do I have to put up with this crap? But you deal with it, and it really does make you stronger if you persevere through it and don't let it, because really in life, all you have control over is your action. And that's one of the things that I also go over with students is, you know, hey, you're the person that determines which route you're going to go. You're the person in control. And so your decisions is the only thing you get to control. So make them good and make them meaningful for yourself.
Absolutely.
Be in the driver's seat is what I like to call it.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. You know, in large part, what I'm hearing you talk about is gratitude. And what I'm hearing you say is, life's handed us as individuals a specific deck of cards with a couple missing. But that doesn't mean we don't have the rest of the deck that we can work with. And so, oftentimes I say this, and it's a bit tongue in cheek, and I don't mean to, diminish running into a pole or having somebody's ride not show up, because that's not a great thing. And
it's life.
Yeah,
it's life.
Exactly. And so one of my tongue-in-cheek jokes that I typically make to my clients is, and to myself, because I'm certainly human, is, did you have a bad day, or did you take 5 minutes and make it into 24 hours?
That's a good way to look at it. That's a really good way to look at it.
It's always your choice. And, even before we hit the record button, I made a comment on the art behind you, and you were like, oh yeah, I created those. And so, taking, what we do have to work with and manifesting that into something beautiful. And at least for me, friend, the art behind you is an example of that.
Thank you. So I actually, thank you. I appreciate that very much. I never started doing art until after my vision loss, believe it or not. I had always wanted to try it. So I just started painting, and another instructor at the school, who's also, legally blind, she also paints, and her work is amazing. It's amazing to see like what people think we can't do sometimes. Because, well, how can you do art if you can't see? Well, there's a lot of things that I can't do, and it has nothing to do with sight. And that's true for anybody.
Right.
It's how I do it is up to me. That's the thing. There's pretty much blind everything, it's just a matter of whether you want to do it or not, is really the way I look at it. An amazing thing that the school does is, because Foundation for Blind Children is kind of a deceptive name, because the school started back in the 1950s here in Arizona as a school for blind children, because there was no other school for them to attend.
Okay.
And so it started back then. But then as the years, went on, it progressed, and the foundation expanded, and now we serve people from birth to death. And we have programs for everybody during the course of a lifetime if they experience vision loss. It's pretty phenomenal what they're able to accomplish and do there. But they work with teenagers, and every couple of years they do an outing with a bunch of teenagers that are legally blind. And this year, I think it was 13. I think it was either 8 or 9 days. They hiked down the Grand Canyon and then did like 100 miles on the Colorado River on the rapids.
Oh, cool.
With these, it's called the Trailblazers, and it's amazing what these kids can do. And they don't put limits on themselves, and it's just really quite incredible. Yeah, there's a video of it on the foundation's. I think it's on the website, but I know that if you go to the foundation's YouTube, there's actually a little video that they did of not just this year's trip, but they've also done Mount Kilimanjaro. They did a sailboat trip a few years ago. It's just incredible what they can do.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's awesome. It's awesome, and it's so empowering for these teenagers to realize that if they work at something, they can absolutely accomplish whatever they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll of course put links to the foundation below in the comments of the video. And so the school itself, is that part of the university system in Arizona now? Tell us a little bit more about how it functions.
Sure. So we're a nonprofit, and we have a lot of the services are for children. We have a campus on the East Valley of Phoenix and the West Valley of Phoenix that is, I think it's preschool through a kindergarten, I think, or like the Head Start program. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is. So it's that through kindergarten. And then at the main campus here in Phoenix, which is where I'm at, we have the adult program and all of our administrative offices. And then we have an elementary school that does Head Start all the way through 3rd grade. And then we have programs where one of the other things that we do is the foundation does all of the printing for Braille books for the entire state of Arizona. So any student, in the state of Arizona that needs Braille materials or any sort of assistive technology for vision loss, it comes through us. And so we do like printing of about 20,000 Braille books a year.
Wow.
In the building that I work in. It's incredible what they're able to do. Yeah. And so it runs, and we have a Braille library of Braille books in our facility that you can come and you can check out a Braille book. It's really quite awesome. And we have a accessible gym, you know, for visually impaired. It's just amazing what they have and what they offer for anybody going through vision loss and at any point in their life. It's our CEO, his son is blind, and so some of the instructors that work in the adult program are also blind, and if at one point have gone through the program themselves. And it's just amazing.
That's incredible. That's incredible. As I said, it's, you know, the more we were talking, and, you know, I didn't know that the anniversary of your vision loss was July 4th. And we hung out July 4th together.
July 4th is kind of a bittersweet day.
I don't understand, but I can empathize now, understanding what happened on that date for you. And so, you know, the more you talked about the foundation, I was like, we've got to sit down and chat and share your passion and share the foundation with as many people as we possibly can. And you're making me think of, you know, Wesley Hamilton, who was one of my first guests, who started a foundation, disabled but not really, in Kansas, because he was had a traumatic injury. He was shot 3 times in the abdomen and is now, you know, paralyzed. And he's launched a foundation to help other individuals, particularly minority individuals, kind of recapture their life and understand they're disabled but not really. And so I see so many parallels between the organizations and the two of you. That's really quite inspiring. And I you know, I want to thank you for your time, but, you know, I don't want to let you go yet. I always like to wrap up with kind of a larger question or a thought-provoking question for you to others. And so, you know, when you're thinking about somebody who's undergone some trauma, whether it's vision loss or, you know, somebody like myself who had their profession taken away from them because of a disability in their hand and not able to function clinical dentistry or any other kind of life trauma, because we all deal with things differently, and trauma's trauma. What would you say to somebody who's in one of those dark moments that you described to kind of help them through?
Use all of the resources you have available to you, the people you know, the people that care about you. Reach out, I think, is a key part of it, and asking for help is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. And I think people view that if they ask for help, that somehow they're weak or they're incapable. And I have the opposite view of that. I think it is a strength to know when you need help and asking for it, because nobody gets through life on their own. Nobody does. And asking, and people in general, they want to help others. I think that's been my experience. And I think that that's pretty true. I think people are good in general, and asking for help is the biggest thing that will help you. And use your resources. There are so many out there, and if you're not sure what they are, just ask. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I'm at. That's for sure. And I think most people who are, you know, pride is such a damaging thing, I think. And it doesn't help anybody get anywhere.
That's true. That's true. Get out of our own damn way.
Absolutely. I tell people that all the time. You know, get out of your way and get out of your head. You know, one of the things that I do twice a week, I do mindfulness. I do 15 minutes of mindfulness with students every week. It's not, they don't have to be part of it, but it's voluntary. But most of them do participate. And, you know, I teach different lessons on mindfulness and, you know, about being present and being, you know, proactive in your life instead of being reactive. Because if you're just being reactive to the things that go around, that happen to you, you are going to be in a constant state of crisis, a constant state of anxiety, and things aren't going to go very great. But when you take a step back, and that was actually the lesson I did yesterday, was, you know, sort of observing moments of your life as though they're a show on TV, and just, you know, looking at it from that sort of perspective and just taking a step back, observing it, and having an objective view of what's going on. It can sort of do a reset, and you can see things from other perspectives rather than just your own. And that's the kind of stuff, and all of it works together to empower students to accomplish what they want. And that's really the whole point of what I do, is so that they can empower themselves to, ultimately go back to work, so that they are, once again, in the driver's seat of their own life. And, the people that I work with they've had incredibly successful lives. They're incredibly accomplished, incredibly smart people, who just have to find a new way to be successful. And they're very amazing people. And so I feel very fortunate to be able to work with them.
That's awesome. Well, Ken, listen, thank you one more time.
Thanks,
I
Mark.
really, really appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom with the world. And so again, we'll put information about the foundation below, and want to remind everybody, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you'd like to join us for additional interviews or our heart-to-hearts or our book reviews. And as I always like to end, please remember that life speaks to you. And if you think it doesn't, you're not listening. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Ken. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.